Shalom and welcome to the Middle East Report. In this program today we'll be discussing the church and why the church needs to demonstrate love and courage in defense of Israel and the Jewish people. Warm welcome to the programme, and today's special guest is all the way from Liverpool. His name is Pastor John Hemus, and he's from the Apostolic Church in Liverpool. Does a lot of work with ICJ UK, MDA and UJIA. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the programme, John. I can't believe it's 2 years since you were last on the programme, but I do have a little gripe to mention with you that you're a big Aston Villa fan, and you cost us the Premier League this season, but as a brother in Christ, I forgive you.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's good to see you as
Great
always.
To see you as well. And John, I mean, firstly, you actually demonstrate your practical love and support for Israel in such a powerful and practical way that this is why I'm so pleased that you're on the programme today, because this is a time when the church really needs to demonstrate that love and courage to support Israel in the face of rising Jew hatred, a rise of anti-Semitism and Islamic extremism that we're seeing today. But can we, since you haven't been on the programme for a couple of years, could you just really unpack your incredible testimony and how the Lord gave you a tremendous love for Israel and the Jewish people?
Absolutely. It's 33 years ago. It was a Jewish man that brought me into the church. And actually, we were talking yesterday. I prayed one day, Simon. I was not in the church at all. I was very far removed from it. But I prayed, God, I cannot be a father to my son like my father was to me. My dad was a tough guy. He was a builder. Within weeks, I was sitting in an Apostolic Church, working for a man that invited me to go to the church. Mind-blowing. I mean, I went from one extreme to a complete opposite. So I really came into the church very supernaturally. I had some very, very serious occurrences happen that got my attention like nothing else could. And I need that. So that's why today, 33 years later, I'm still here.
Amen to that. But also share with us how the Lord has given you a love, but for Israel and the Jewish people. Now, it hasn't stopped where so many Christians just come to a theological understanding of God's plans and purposes for Israel. Maybe they pray for Israel, but literally you have shown an unprecedented love and support for the Jewish people in such a practical way that it touches them. So share with us how the Lord's put that fire in your heart to touch and bless his people.
It started with my friendship with Darryl. And obviously he taught me Bible studies. I was taught the scripture through the eyes of a Jewish man. So I had this really good insight, not from a Christian perspective, from a Jewish perspective. So over the years, my studies went into the Tanakh, studied it, still do every day basically. So I began to have a love for Darryl first, and his father and his family. And it wasn't until years later, about 2014, that we paid a visit. And I just fell in love with the Jewish people and Israel. And I still am.
Amazing. So last programme that you did with us, and I can't believe it's 2 years because we have stayed in touch ever since on quite a regular basis, that you launched this wonderful initiative of going to Israel and restoring the homes of Holocaust survivors. Just share with us what that experience was to, bring your son there, to bring members of your church there, to renovate all these homes of Holocaust survivors. Just share with us that experience of being in Israel and doing that.
I received an email. I didn't know who from. All I could see was we need help in Israel, and I really wanted to go there anyway, but it was this building project that I didn't know who they were. So I just sent an email about what do you need. We need some skills, we need some timber, concrete and everything else. So I said, send me your blueprint, let me have a look at what you got. And within 6 months I was there. So I rallied the troops, my 2 sons went with me, 6 of us, and in 2 apartments in 4 days, we literally rebuilt them for them. And that was back in 2019. And then it moved on to us getting it with the ICEJ, because apparently that's who we were there with, we didn't know. But it's just created this incredible relationship with them. Still today that we, when we go back to Israel, we go up to Haifa, we go and see the home. And one of the ladies we were in 2019 was outside of the home a couple of years ago when we got there, and she remembered us, literally starts to cry when she sees us, and we're hugging this lady, and it was awesome. So it's something that has grown to the point where I'm very passionate about it today. Very passionate.
Well, excellent. Well, let's have a look at the video and remind ourselves of when John was in Israel and actually helped to renovate the home of a Holocaust survivor in Haifa in Israel.
Yeah.
The ICEJ Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, an assisted living care facility where elderly Holocaust survivors experience a loving family environment. Since 2009, through the love and support of Christians around the world, ICEJ has had the privilege of taking care of Holocaust survivors in this unique home. And in 2018, we launched an exciting renovation and expansion called Project Upgrade.
Through the years that we have been here, there is a lot of need for repairs because the buildings are old. But what is most important for us and for every volunteer is that their life will be easier, because that's our goal, that these people will live out their life, in the best way possible, in a loving atmosphere, but also easy, practically seen.
My name is John Hemus, and we live in Liverpool, England. I am a pastor of the Apostolic Church of Liverpool, and I met the ICEJ through an email advertising that they was purchasing some new buildings, and I decided to ask some men that work for us if they would come and help to renovate the apartments for the Holocaust survivors. It's quite emotional to see that the thanks and just the appreciation that we see. If you can understand when you see somebody that has been through so much trauma and hurt and pain, and you can do something to help, that's, a tiny, tiny drop of the ocean. But it's been very emotional, and I'm not going to say no more.
ואני מאוד שמחה שאנשים שלא גרים בישראל חושבים עלינו, ושתמשיכו לעשות טוב לאנשים אחרים. אז תודה לכל אלו שבאים, שעושים למעננו, ותמשיכו לבוא.
We feel anything we can do to help, we will, but it's really impressive how much appreciation you get back from them.
לכל המתנדבים אני שולחת תודה רבה מקרב לב, וגם כלכלית עוזרים לנו, וגם בשיפוצים ובבתים שלנו, אז באמת תודה רבה מקרב לב.
Three times a week we come together for prayer, for worship, for just praying for one another. sharing, and these times are always very powerful because we always tell people we are here to build walls and we're here to, put in screws and repair stuff. But our impact is so much deeper, and we see that the impact is not just here in the home itself, but that also the volunteers that come are deeply impacted in their own lives.
Hearing the Holocaust survivors' stories, it's pure inspiration, and it makes me want to do good for the rest of my life.
Fantastic reaction to see the all different nations, everybody. We have Germans, we have Swiss, the English, the Dutch, and I would hope that anybody that watches this from anywhere would want to be involved in this. This work is phenomenal, it's fantastic. To see everyone working together with the same accord in one place, I love it. And we will be back quicker than later, sooner than later.
Support the ICEJ Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors by visiting icej.org/Haifa.
That was courtesy of our friends at the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. Inspirational. I love that video. I think it was very appropriate that we showed that video because it really does show that practical love to Holocaust survivors. Share with us, John, God's heart for the Holocaust survivors and why it's so important that Christians write a new chapter in Jewish and Christian relations, and I can't think of anything better than renovating the home of a Holocaust survivor in Israel.
Well, basically, Simon, that's what it was. What can we do that would make a huge change? And one was to show them the love of Jesus Christ, first and foremost. It went beyond our comprehension, to be honest with you. We're just basically a blubbering mess, a lot of us. We got some tough guys that were there, and they would just run out the building. They just couldn't cope. I'd find them outside weeping in a corner. But to show that love, to me, I am a builder. It's so practical, it's simple, but people aren't used to that. And when they find out we're doing it, we raised the money, we raised for the food and the hotels and the travel, so it was free for them. Massive difference. We had people help us, but today I've got a list of people that are just waiting to go. We want to get involved with you, we want to do what you did. I've got some builders in America, some in Great Britain that just have seen the evidence of somebody crying on your shoulder when you've never met them before, but with their thanks was overwhelming.
But show us the bonding experience you had. I know your two sons were out working in that video as well, but share with us the bonding experience that you have doing something purely for the love of it. You're not doing it for money. You're doing it because you want to touch these Holocaust survivors. And just share with the bond that you have and the bond of connection with these survivors when they see that their home has been transformed. Actually, I think it'd make a very good TV series, to be honest.
Let's go. I'll do that with you. It's again, if somebody gives you something for free and it's meaningful to you, and you can't argue with it, It's like, why are you doing this for me? Because we love you. Well, why do you love us? Because we do. Why? I mean, you've got the Jewish people were so persecuted for all these centuries, especially after the Second World War, when they came out of their persecution and started to get back into Israel and rebuild. My thought process is, what can we do personally, individually? And that's really what the door opened for us. There's a passion to do it, and God opens the door, and in we go. And it's still today, that lady that was on that video, we saw her 2 years ago, remembered us, hugged us, and cried on our shoulder. Fantastic.
Amazing. And John, share with us how you've developed from renovating the homes of Holocaust survivors to working with Magen Adom, Israel's National Emergency Service, and your project there up in the Golan Heights, renovating an MDA ambulance station together with, because Marilyn got in touch with me and she actually then filmed it with MDA. So at least I feel like I've had a little bit of connection involvement in this project.
You did.
Not very much, but a little bit, which was a pleasure. But share with us the vision the Lord gave you and the cooperation that you've been developing with Magen Adom.
We went, when we come back, we met the head of ICEJ, David Elms. He arrives at our church one day, knocks the door. Have you guys been in Israel? I'm like, yeah, we just come back actually. So I met David because I didn't know who we were working with. I went to one of their evening meetings and a man called Stephen Jaffe, one of the representatives.
Mine, yeah.
Absolutely. I love Stephen Jaffe.
Oh, everyone does.
He was the speaker that night. So that video we've just watched was on, and he's kind of looking at the crowd going, you're the guys on the video? You know, you can see him putting two and two together. So I met Stephen. Next thing is, I'm down in London meeting Daniel Berger, head of MDA in London. And it was, I wanted to do a project with MDA. And it was kind of pushed back to start with. Why? How much? You know, et cetera, et cetera. So they give us a break and I said, let me go to one of your stations and let's prove to you who we are and what we can do. So that's why we ended up being up in the Golan Heights, our first project. Now we have 10 ahead of us.
Amazing.
10. So yeah, it's been an awesome introduction. We've proved our worth. And now they want us to come back and continue.
But share with us the reaction of when you went there and the state of this MDA ambulance station that's based up in the Golan Heights.
Are we actually going to watch the next?
We will, but I want you to unpack this first before we do.
Walking into this station, it was an old school, and it was an old school. These guys sleep on very, very primitive beds, and what they had there was just about to suffice to help the paramedics through the night. We walk in, strip it down, and then rebuild it and give it them back in 4 days. So, I mean, if you watch the video, you can see the response that we had was just phenomenal. I was going to say fantastic. But what I love about it, it crosses all barriers. Forget religion, forget your politics. It's just a pure love for people. And that's what the biggest bridge we have ever built was with whomsoever was there. So there were Muslims, Jews, Druze, and we showed them our love by what we did. And you'll see the response.
Well, let's have a look then. I don't think we can wait any longer. So let's have a look at this excellent video produced by MDA, looking at John's work in renovating an MDA ambulance centre in the north of Israel, in the Golan Heights.
Magen Adom is Israel's national rescue organization. We are mandated by the government, but we are not funded by the government. Magen Adom is a charity organization. Our funding comes from donating money or donating ambulances, medicycles or equipment. And donors are mainly from the diaspora. The vast majority of MDA is actually volunteers. We have 2,500 employees, but we have 30,000 volunteers. John approached us. He wanted to give something of his time, of his experience. So we chose a project of a station that needed refurbishment. And John said, it's on me.
My name is John Hemus. I am the pastor of the Apostolic Church in Liverpool, England. With me, I have got my wife. I have some of the leaders or the elders of our church. We are all volunteers. Several are skilled in what we're doing in the renovation, so there's 9 of us.
We've come up to Masadeh, which is a Druze village in the north of Israel. The Hermon Mountain overlooks the village.
We've come to obviously help the MDA station. We're going to renovate it. That's my skill. I'm a builder. We come to repaint the community area, which is where you walk through the front door, take out the old kitchen, renew it. We stripped off the cement outside, resealed the whole back. The purpose of renovating the building is to show the local community that outside of here, there are people that love them and care for what they are doing here. God has placed his people, Israel, in this land. We're using the skills that God has given us to show we love them, that we care for them, and if we can help them in any way, that's what we're here. That's the purpose.
Across Israel, wherever you look, whichever station you go to, you'll find a mix of Jews and Arabs and Christian Arabs and Muslims and the Bedouin communities, the Druze community, which is where we are at the moment.
כשאני מגיע לתאונת דרכים או לבית מתאבד, אני מתאבד בבן אדם, אני לא מתאבד בדת, לא חשוב לי, אני מתאבד בבן אדם.
What they look at is the symbol on my shirt, the Magen David Adom. They open their homes to us because they know we're there for the importance of looking after that life, of that sanctity of life.
What MDA does just blows me away. I just want to bless the MDA with a bit of work, make the rooms a bit nicer to look at and feel that I've done something good for Israel. I pray for Israel every day, so it just makes my prayers more real.
I'm really moved by the MDA guys. Their priority is life and saving life. It doesn't matter about beliefs when someone needs help. I was a professional decorator, so being able to share my skills, it's an absolute privilege.
הצוות שהגיע לתחנה לשיבוץ, ראיתי אותם אנשים מדהימים, אנשים עם לב זהב, באמת, מתייחסים אלינו בצורה מאוד עדינה וכזה חמודים, באמת. אני אהבתי את המוקש שלהם, ואני שמח שהגיעו לתחנה, באמת. זה פעם ראשונה שאני רואה אנשים כאלה, והיה לנו ביניהם שפשוק כזה. כל הכבוד, שיהיו בריאים.
I'm a firefighter next door of MDA. It's filled my heart to see people that leave everything and coming to do this, all the construction and everything, to make this MDA station for the community. It's make my heart like it's difficult to explain it.
It's affecting us, all of us. So what we thought we'd come to do, they are helping us immensely too. What they have shown us is just complete love. It's incredible. Thank God that I have the opportunity that I can come here and do this. It's fabulous.
The project that John's come with has made a difference. They've put in a new kitchen, they've put paint all over the walls, they've made the place look homely, feel like you can come in and you can sit down for a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a meal in between the calls that we're going out on. And it's made a very big difference to the staff and to the volunteers who attend that station. We have come just for that. It's a sort of giving that we're not used to. It's something very different, and it's something that I think we'd like to get used to.
We have just combined our efforts and our love to them when they've been reciprocating back. And it's just wonderful to be part of that and see it for yourself. If I can get other people involved, whether it be financially or boots on the ground, any skilled labour, any plasterers, bricklayers, whomsoever, and this tiny little thing that we are doing could blossom into something so magnificent. So everybody come and get involved in working with us in Israel.
I think we can see there from that absolutely inspirational video there the impact that renovating this MDA Ambulance station in the north of Israel has had on the people of Israel, and shows that practical love to the Jewish people, but also the local Jewish community and Arab community as well. Firstly, I don't know how you and you guys managed to renovate that whole entire ambulance station within 4 days. That in itself seems like a miracle, looking at the magnitude of the operation they undertook. But really, the other aspect of this one, and you shared before the program, was that this really had an impact on the Druze, who are Arabs, and also the Muslim Arabs that work for MDA. Why were they so touched by this?
Again, I think when you offer somebody the service that we offer, I mean, they were, they kept asking us, why are you here? And it didn't matter who we were talking to, we love you. We're Christians. Our mandate from God is to love people and show the love of Christ. Eventually, I ended up praying with them all.
Amazing.
When you saw that final, I've just laid my hands upon everybody and prayed, and they're like, oh my God, what's that? These are the Arabs, these are the Jews. It was just, The Muslim response was, you do this because of you love us. I mean, 1,000,000% we love you. And that was fantastic, it really was. So you can see the big man, Ali, hugged me. I mean, I thought he was going to break my neck when he hugged me, just crying on me. But he was one of the Muslim guys.
But demonstrate, I think, through the two videos that we've shown, why it's so important that Christians show that practical love and support to Israel and the Jewish people. Because, I don't think it's enough for people to say, we're praying for you. You've gone that extra mile, as Jesus told us to do in the Gospels, by reaching out to the Jewish people and the nation of Israel in love. Show us why that is so important that the church does that.
One, the tangibility of being with people that would, if you never met anybody before and somebody walks up, I come into your house and go, Simon, I'll renovate your kitchen for you for free. You're like, really? Okay. But it was also building the bridges, building that relationship with them. Once they saw that we were genuine, Simon, the doors opened up. I was taken to all the Druze homes, me and Sherry. The people of the village came just to see us, come to meet us. Plumbing guys, building guys could come up and see us. We want to meet you. We want to meet your family and come and meet our family. I mean, within days, the whole village of Masada had met us basically. We knew who we were, walking down the streets. Restaurants knew who we were. Awesome.
So they give you the keys to the town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was incredible. We had the keys to their heart, actually.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Sadly, every program I've done since October the 7th, I have to put it within that context. Share with us your thoughts on where you were on October the 7th and when did you first discover the true extent of the terror and the evil that was unfolding against southern Israel on that evil day?
We received a phone call. Have you seen the news? First and foremost, I just thought it was one or two. There was, an incident, which they do have, unfortunately. There's quite a few incidents that do happen. We've been there in Israel when these things have happened previously. But when I realised the atrocity, I was stunned. So I actually called a few people. I think we was in the States at the time, and I called home and I started to talk to some of the MDA and asking what can we do. And then they was like, well, we don't know the extent of it yet. Oh my gosh, Simon, when I realised by 24 hours what had happened there. I mean, I can't, but I still today can't tell you how the sadness, the sickness that I felt of why on earth can somebody go and do this to innocent people?
And we have to put this in context. This was the biggest massacre against Jewish people that we've seen for over 80 years. And the last time, that was the Holocaust. 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals murdered, 250 taken back to that hellhole that is Gaza and held by Hamas, and many of them are still there. Obviously their fate is in the hands of Hamas, but we know their fate is in the hands of God, and that's why we're praying for them every day. But also then between 6,000 and 7,000 injured. And it's not until you actually go to southern Israel, when you see the whole magnitude of what happened, do you realise the gates of hell were literally unleashed against Israel on that day. But also share with us, because you work very closely with the Jewish community both in Liverpool and Manchester. Share with us how the events of October the 7th have also led to a huge rise in Jew hatred around the world, and how that's affecting the Jewish communities both in Manchester and Liverpool.
Obviously the unfortunate thing is the way they've had to withdraw themselves. A lot of fear. They know us, thankfully for the videos. A lot of people have had it shown in their synagogues. And they kind of dropped the guard. We was, a couple of weeks ago, we was in Manchester watching that video. Unfortunately, when I've been into the communities, we're not going to open up, we're going to close ourselves down, we need to protect ourselves. And that is in Great Britain. That should not be happening to anybody. I don't care who they are.
Absolutely.
So that defense mechanism, but don't forget, these are some of the most persecuted people the world's ever known. And now they're living in fear, abject fear, some of them. Yeah. It's horrendous.
John, you visited Israel recently, back in March of this year. Can you just share with us your thoughts of what you saw in Israel after October the 7th, and also you visited, similar to myself, you visited Kibbutz Barrett, I visited Kibbutz Nir Oz. Share with us your thoughts of visiting that kibbutz that was destroyed by Hamas on October the 7th.
To say surreal, the solemnness of standing there when you know what happened there, I think it took us days. And as a pastor of a church, there was about 26 of us, I think. By the time we'd come out of 2 of the different kibbutz, we also went to Sderot, where there's videos of them just randomly shooting people and blowing their cars up. We went through all the different areas. Standing there, I even said to everybody, this is not going to hit you until you probably get home, what we've just witnessed. Yeah. Basically, at the end of the trip, you could have heard a pin drop between all of us. So solemn. But is this really this real? Did this really happen? But when we went into the actual homes and you saw in the blood-stained walls and where they dragged bodies across the floor and in the cribs where there was burnt cribs where children would have been. Simon, you can't explain that to anybody. You just really can't. All I could do was pray. God help us.
Absolutely, but what is your response to the apathy, the indifference, or the hatred being shown by so many evangelical churches across the world when it comes to Israel, knowing what happened to Israel on October the 7th? I just find absolutely repulsive and disgusting, and really we do need to challenge the theology of church replacement theology, to be indifferent and apathetic when we haven't seen this sort of evil since the Nazis, and that was over 80 years ago with the Second World War.
Ignorance is not bliss. And how they can ignore this and even some way find a route to say, well, Israel caused this, blows my mind. I haven't cussed for 33 years. The words that I would love to say to some of these people would be very deep, but very meaningful. But I've spoke to some people that just oblivious, just blank it out. And I'm going, you can't be this blind. You cannot be this ignorant. We are the extension, to me, and this is my own opinion, of Judaism. We are the extension of the day of Pentecost. The Jews received the Holy Ghost. By Acts 10, so did the Gentiles. Exactly the same experience. We are, we're knitted in with them. How can we, a replacement theology? Rubbish. It does not exist. It exists in the minds of some people, unfortunately too many of them. But they need to wake up, Simon. Now, I mean wake up. Because if this is not taken care of in the Middle East, well, who do you think is going to be next?
Absolutely. So share with us what the consequences are if the church in the Western world doesn't wake up to this. I mean, it almost seems as if the church in the West has been given another chance. In the 1930s, we had the likes of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who raised the alarm in Germany about the rise of Nazism. He tried to persuade 80 evangelical churches to back his campaign to stop Hitler. And I think only 12 ended up only a few thousand end up supporting him. The vast majority were indifferent, but there were other evangelical churches that were 100% behind Hitler and the Nazi movement. And with this rise of Jew hatred we saw after October the 7th, the Jewish people are in hiding again. Isn't this time now that the church had the moral fortitude and the courage towards Israel and the Jewish people, and comforted, as it says in Isaiah 40, comfort ye my people?
I'm going to step out a little bit here.
Please do.
Every human being in this world, Simon, has got a chance for salvation, an opportunity. The only opportunity they're going to get is if the church speaks up and tells them. I do my best, whether it's a Muslim, whether it's a Hindu, it doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter what religion, to let them see that what we've experienced, they also need to experience it. When you see the hatred's taught. You're not born hateful. You're taught how to hate. Racism is taught. We're not racists. We're not hateful. We're not murderous. But we're taught this. My thought and my goal would be to uneducate reverse all the indoctrinations that they've had and let them see the truth. And that truth sets them free. And that's my goal, my prayer, God help me to do this to whomsoever, wheresoever.
Yeah, very true. So let's have a look now at this, I warn you, slightly distressing CBN news report from kibbutz Barrett that John visited back in March, and you can see yourself the devastation caused by Hamas, but also big question marks are being raised in Israel as to where was the IDF on October the 7th.
The Israeli military released a report on its own conduct and failures at kibbutz Be'eri on October 7th, including a diagram of the battle.
That day, the IDF failed in its mission to protect the citizens of Israel.
Be'eri was one of the communities hardest hit by Hamas, with more than 100 Israelis slaughtered and more than 30 hostages taken that day, including 11 still in captivity.
We were not prepared for the murderous terrorist attack by Hamas, involving thousands of terrorists who infiltrated the country at dozens of points at the same time.
Terrorists killed Meir Zerbiv's brother and sister. He's furious with the IDF for not quickly charging into the kibbutz to stop the slaughter.
The terrorists broke into the kibbutz at 6:30 in the morning, and around, I think, 10 to 10:30, forces arrived at the entrance of the kibbutz, and they were asked to enter. They didn't want to enter. They said they weren't given the order to enter.
Israel's prime minister has rejected an official probe into October 7th while a war is going on. But this week, his own defense minister called for just such an investigation.
We require a probe at the national level, a probe that will clarify the facts. It needs to check me, Minister of Defense. It needs to check the Prime Minister.
As for the war in Gaza, the Washington Post reports both Hamas and Israel have agreed to the broad outline of a hostage release and ceasefire deal. But many details still need to be worked out. At a news conference, Joe Biden revealed he and American negotiators are heavily involved.
And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now.
Biden also repeated his stance that the only way to a lasting peace is by creating a Palestinian state, something Netanyahu and the majority of the Israeli people are against. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And I think thanks to our friends there at CBN for that excellent news report. I think we have to understand that Israel is going through post-traumatic stress disorder. Most Israelis are traumatized by the events of October the 7th and now face an even bigger prospect of war against Hezbollah in the north. So please continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, which is a biblical command. I have to ask you, John, what did you learn reflecting from your visit to Israel? Because the one thing I learned more than anything else is that for once Israel is a united country. Mm-hmm. But I would have thought that, for example, if it was Britain that was attacked by Hamas on October the 7th or the United States, the major number one concern would have been retribution, revenge. Let's destroy enemies, let's destroy Hamas. We don't care about the civilian population in Gaza because we've been hurt and badly wounded and damaged. And yet what the Israelis care about more is they care more about getting the hostages home and bringing them home than they do about eliminating Hamas. Share with us what that says about the nation of Israel and the people of Israel, because I think their values are so much higher than that of the British or the Americans or any Europeans.
You're right. We sat with some of the families of the hostages. Again, obviously, it was so moving. But they have a incredible resolve about everything. We don't have this. But they do. What they went through, they come together like nobody else does. And I think over the years, obviously, they've had to. But again, when we were there, it was such a solidarity between the Israelites and even with the Arabs. And can you imagine when we were out and you've got the Arab world looking, going, not all of us are like this, and they were very open with us about it. But, oh gosh, I tell you, Simon, I will never forget what I saw. And anything we can do to get in between, even be a mediator, to get people on both sides of a table, to bring some form of peace. I know the Hamas agenda is not it's horrendous. But somewhere in this, we've got to be able to bring them both together and say, we've got to stop this. No one is gaining anything anymore, are they? Nothing's happened. It hasn't proven a thing. It's just proven how murderous some human beings can be.
Yeah, but we have to, well, unpicking this, we have to deal with the head of the snake. Mm-hmm. And the head of the snake is the Iranian regime. And with the Iranian regime gone, we'll see Islamic terrorism and fundamentalism go like that.
Yeah.
We've already seen, for example, in Egypt, that the Egyptians over a decade ago rejected the Muslim Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. We're seeing now that out of 70,000 mosques in Iran, there's only 20,000 left because people in Iran are not attending their mosques anymore. Yeah. They don't want this Islamic extremism. And until you actually get rid of this Iranian regime, then this war is going to perpetuate because they support Hamas, they support Hezbollah, they support the Houthis, they support Palestinian Islamic Jihad, they support, they did support ISIS until ISIS then emerged as a threat to them. And they also support, other horrendous terrorist organizations around the world. So until you deal with the Iranian problem, you can't actually deal with the Hamas or the Hezbollah problem because these are just tentacles of a bigger octopus that is actually carrying out its master plan in the Middle East to create a Shia crescent and then to destroy Jerusalem. But when you reflect on it, can you just share with us the impact that this has had on some of the Israeli Arabs and Israeli Muslims seeing the horrors that Hamas committed on October the 7th and thinking this, like, not in my name, as it were?
When meeting them, speaking to people when you're in Israel, especially the Arabs, even the guys we was working with up in the Golan Heights, that is not the heartbeat of, I don't know the percentage, let's say 95%. That's not what they want. That when I was at a school in Akko, we went and there was the Jews and the Arabs teaching the children. The children, I mean, me and my wife wept. The kids were going, we don't want to live like this. That's from the mouths of children. This is not, don't believe the media. And I know we're on a TV show. Don't believe the media. This is not us. They were being taught, the Jews were being taught by Arabs as the Arabs were being taught by the Jews. There is such a want of peace within the people. And it's not everybody, Simon, but unfortunately, the ones that have fell through the cracks have created havoc.
Absolutely. John, you also recently saw the screening of Bearing Witness to October the 7th massacre, screened in Manchester, organised by the Israeli Embassy. I saw that a few months ago. Share with us your thoughts on seeing the actual Hamas video footage that they filmed of October the 7th with their own body cams and together compiled with Israeli CCTV cameras as you literally saw the horrors of October the 7th unfold.
In the room, if you've viewed it yourself, people were speechless. Silence in that room, and you could hear people sobbing. The atrocity is when you visually watch people being murdered in cold blood. What bothered me is also when they shout, Allah Akbar, God is great. And I want to move into the two different religious aspects here. Even the Islamic believers say that the father of their religion is Abraham. So do the Jews, and really so do the Christians. One day, Simon, when I sat in that room, I asked the diplomat, the Israeli diplomat, can we show this worldwide? Why are we just having these private meetings? Everybody needs to see this. And obviously for the honor of the families, and they didn't want to display their children. But by the time we had finished this 47 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
You could see the sadness, the anger, for goodness sake, let the world see this, please. I will say this, I will never forget this. that is actually drove me even more. I want to get back into Israel. I do want to meet with different parties. I want to be with the Arabs and the Muslims. I do want to speak to the Jewish people and the believers. Somewhere in this, if the Arabs can look at the God of Abraham, their cousins are the Jews. Why on earth can't they just look at the one God, one true God, and realize what on earth are we doing? These are our flesh and blood that we're killing each other. Somewhere, Simon, that's my prayer, but somewhere in all of this, we are going to be able to say, guys, you need to look at this. You need to see that you worship the same God. Now, Allah Akbar, his name is Yeshua. The God of Israel is also the God of the Arabs. Absolutely. The God of the Christians.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Firstly, I didn't want to see that video. Having seen similar footage straight after October the 7th and showing it on this program, that what we could show. But then having gone to Israel and seen the horrors for myself, seeing the destruction at kibbutz near Oz, seeing destruction at one of the car parks, seeing all the cars from the Nova Music Festival shot up with bullets, cars burnt. Yep. And then when you see the footage as well, and then you compile that on top of that, you just think, just the magnitude of it, the sheer evil of it, and the world is indifferent towards it. They just move on and say, well, the narrative has changed now. Israel won public sympathy around the world after October the 7th, and then Israel launches a military operation into Gaza to destroy Hamas. Now, what people don't understand is that it's only the strongest that survive in the Middle East. And the fact that if Israel hadn't gone in and carried out that military operation against Hamas, then what this would have led to is another October the 7th, but this time even worse. And when I was in Israel, I heard from a pastor who said if it wasn't for the Nova Music Festival, then Hamas would have reached Israel's southern towns of Ashkelon, because there was nothing stopping Hamas from Gaza, going from Gaza all the way up to Israel's southern cities, because they got distracted by killing as many of these young Israeli party goers, which is just beyond horrific. But you get a sense that the world wants to turn a blind eye to this, and they bought into the Hamas-Palestinian narrative that Israel's committing genocide, when in reality it's Hamas and those in Gaza that committed genocide against the Israeli people. And our moral compass has gone absolutely skew-whiff at the moment. It's upside down. The world doesn't know the difference between good and evil. But this should be the role of the church, to actually provide that, to be the moral conscience of the nation, to actually identify that what happened on October the 7th to God's chosen people was evil, and this needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
So what do you think it's going to take for the church to wake up? I mean, is it going to mean that actually our churches here in the West are threatened by Islamic extremism? Is it going to take an October the 7th scenario in London or Manchester or New York or Washington, D.C. For the West to realise that we need to stand with Israel? Because if we don't, this same spirit will come after us.
Well, as you well know, we've had our problems in this country of the last 10 years, 20 years. My thought is let them see it. If they have to cover the faces of the people, I don't know. But without seeing it, their blind eye is always going to stay there. But if they could just somehow, I mean, don't forget most of this is on TikTok. They freely just put it out there. Look what we've done. Look what we did to people.
And then they deny it.
I know, but it's there. We've got the footage, and you can't deny that.
Exactly.
And when I hear about the genocide, and I look at in 1947 there was 146,000 or Arabs in Israel. Today there's 2.4 million. That's not genocide. They had just released 20,000 more permits to let them come out of Gaza to work in Israel. They work with them, they are so kind to them, they help them, etc., Simon. I would honestly say, if we would stand up and make this count, we can't go through this again. They can't, the Hamas's deal. If we can just show this video, I don't know how it would happen. I did ask the diplomats, can we put it on TV? And they're like, no. How can we put that out to the world for letting them see it and let the world go, this has got to stop? We need somehow the pressure. All our different nations who unfortunately still have this ignorance towards Israel. How can we show this to the world?
Well, it's a good question, but I don't think the world wants to see it or hear it. That's the problem. They want to be in their ignorance. They want to take their stance in which they do, in which the nation of Israel is the Jew amongst the nations. Yeah. And that's the danger. But I think that any pastor in this country that has a hunger for truth, even if they haven't had God's revelation of God's plans and purposes for Israel and the Jewish people, needs to see something like this, because this is what we're facing. We have to be real as Christians, and we have to see evil as it is, rather than pacifying it, rather than being indifferent from it. Because remember, what starts with the Jewish people never finishes with the Jewish people. Yep. And that's what happened in the Holocaust. Yep. The church turned a blind eye to the plight of the Jewish people in Europe. And what did we get? We got the Nazis, and then we got the Holocaust, and then millions died during the Second World War fighting against this Nazi regime. So isn't that the lesson of the Holocaust, is to say, if the Jewish people are being attacked, then our society, our churches, our nation will be next.
Absolutely. Have we learnt lessons though?
No.
Is history repeating itself?
Yes, it is. In a different way, yes. Not the same as it was in the 1930s, but it's definitely repeating itself. And today, there was an article in the Sunday Times Culture magazine, for example, on Sunday, and this is Jewish artists saying how Jew hatred has penetrated the arts, whether it's art, whether it's films, whether it's music, the entertainment industry, it's penetrated it. Yep. So there isn't any kind of aspect of modern society now that is not penetrated by Jew hatred. And this is this spirit that's rising against the Jewish people, who are God's chosen people, and they have a special plan and purpose in God's eyes. So isn't it imperative that the church understands this and wakes up? But as a pastor, how do you communicate that to other pastors?
I try. Again, the rhetoric that's been put out there, this is deep. This goes back years. Trying to tell somebody that black is actually black and white is actually white when they've believed opposite all these years, it's a challenge. I'm trying. The church and I pastor are very aware of all circumstances, of would it be an Arab side, a Jewish side. I just don't lean one way, Simon. I'm like, we all need to come together. Doesn't matter who we are, what we are. Jesus Christ died for everybody. We kind of tend to forget that. But what my concern is how quiet the church is. How do they hear without a preacher? And how do they hear unless they're sent? That's what Paul said. I'm trying to send people out. I'm trying to do it sitting with you here today. I hope that anybody that watches this has a wake-up call. And a pastor watching this goes back to his church and go, we need to revisit this. We truly need to find out where the root is and how we can kill it and how we can change everything.
But surely a way for doing that is for pastors to get back to the scriptures.
Yes.
Start reading the Old Testament and then linking the Old Testament to the New Testament. Yep. Start getting our theology right. But also then, as you've demonstrated in this program and you demonstrate through your life, John, is showing that practical love by touching Israel and the Jewish people, because that's where the blessing is. Yep. That's where God's heart is. Hugely. And surely you're an inspiration in terms of doing that. But we're coming to the end of the program now, but just putting an idea in your head now. Would you like to help build some of those kibbutzes that were destroyed?
Already put our name down.
Yeah.
When we was in Barrett. And I'll tell you one thing, we've also put our name down to go into Gaza and help rebuild Gaza. So, I know.
You kind of shocked me there.
We've also said, we've put the feelers out that if we can get into the Gaza Strip or whomsoever, wheresoever, we will put a crew in there and we'll do what we can do to rebuild also Gaza, as well as the kibbutz, as well as other MDA stations. We've got about 10 stations right now, been laid at our lap. Can you come and build? So both sides.
And why is it important to do that? Because it's an unusual thing to actually say that you want to go into Gaza knowing that Gaza is such a hellhole. You know, Gaza has been controlled by Hamas really since 2007. It's a totalitarian regime where the people are oppressed. They're under an absolute demonic and dark principality.
Yep.
And the people are being radicalized not only to hate Jews in Israel, but literally to kill them, as we saw on October the 7th.
Yeah. I can see that. You just said the totalitarianism, that oppression. Simon, they don't know what love is. When you see them, they don't smile. They are so downtrodden, so beaten down. Can you imagine somebody just openly loving them? That probably freak them out to start with. But I know we can. If we can show them, hold on guys, this whole world that you've been living in, it's not like the world around you. People love you. And people would come in and definitely rebuild their lives and let them start over again. And I hope, and I know they speak about a two-state solution and all that stuff, but I just hope that we can show even the poor people that have been so just demolished their lives since 2005, even worse so. What can we do? Just go in, show them that they are loved, and hope and pray to God that what was in there has now been removed. I don't want to be, ducking as I'm putting the front door in for somebody, But that's the hope, Simon. That's our prayer.
Pleasure. John, absolute pleasure to have you on the Middle East Report today. And I'm looking forward to our next episode when I hear about one of these amazing projects we helped to rebuild some of those homes in the south of Israel, those kibbutzes. And even more extraordinary if you end up going into Gaza in the aftermath of October the 7th.
We're going to get in there.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you for watching this program at home. I think through this program today, I think we can demonstrate how important it is as Christians to show that practical love and support for Israel by touching Holocaust survivors, by touching Israelis, by touching Israeli Arabs with the love of Yeshua HaMashiach makes a huge difference, but showing it in such a practical, loving way. And this is why the church needs to find its courage to support Israel at this critical time. So thank you for watching this week's edition of the Middle East Report.